In 2012, a small plane flew low over the Cambodian jungle, firing 1 million laser pulses a second at the ground. When the trees were digitally stripped away, the archaeologist looking at the screen went silent. Beneath the canopy around Angkor Wat was not a temple. It was a city, with streets, canals, and city blocks stretching in every direction, far larger than medieval Paris. For most of a century, this is the picture the world had of Angkor. A single staggering temple, Angkor Wat, rising out of the forest in northern Cambodia. 5 towers shaped like lotus buds, walls carved with 10,000 figures, the largest religious monument ever built. Tourists came, walked the causeway, photographed the towers, and went home believing they had seen Angkor, a magnificent temple, swallowed by jungle, abandoned and mysterious. But that picture was wrong. Not the temple. The temple is real. What was wrong was the idea that it stood alone. The trees hid something. For centuries, the forest that seemed to be Angkor's tomb was actually its disguise. Underneath the roots and the leaf litter lay the outline of one of the largest cities the pre-industrial world ever produced. And the reason nobody could see it was simple. You cannot map a city you cannot walk through. The Cambodian forest is dense, tangled, and in places seeded with landmines. From the ground you see 10 meters ahead. From above you see a green blanket. To find the city, archaeologists needed a way to see through the trees, and in 2012, they finally got one. The tool was called LiDAR, light detection and ranging. The idea is almost absurdly simple. You mount a laser scanner under an aircraft. As the plane flies, the scanner fires hundreds of thousands of laser pulses every second, straight down at the forest. Each pulse hits something and bounces back. The instrument measures exactly how long the round trip took, and from that, the exact height of whatever it hit. Most pulses hit leaves and branches, but out of 1 million pulses, a few thousand slip through the gaps in the canopy, all the way down to the forest floor. A computer then throws away every point that hit a leaf, and keeps only the points that reach the ground. What's left is the bare earth, rendered in 3 dimensions, as if every tree on the planet had been lifted away by a giant hand. In 2012, a team led by archaeologist Damian Evans flew LiDAR over 370 square kilometers around Angkor. In 2015, a second, far larger survey covered nearly 2,000 square kilometers. When the ground images came back, they showed something no one had ever mapped. Not ruins, not scattered stones, a plan, straight roads, rectangular house mounds arranged in neat blocks, ponds dug in tidy rows, the unmistakable fingerprint of urban planning. But the real shock wasn't the streets, it was how far they went. The Angkor that tourists see is the stone core, the great temples ringed by moats. But the LiDAR showed that the temples were just the monumental center of something enormous. Beyond the walls, the grid kept going and going. Low mounds where wooden houses once stood, spreading out for kilometers past the last temple, into land that today is rice paddy and forest. This was not a dense stone city like Rome, it was something else, a low-density urban sprawl. Historians call it a hydraulic city, because the thing that held it together, the thing that made it possible, was water. The Khmer engineers who built Angkor were, above all, masters of water. They dug vast rectangular reservoirs called barays. One of them, the West Baray, is 8 kilometers long and still holds water today, 800 years later. They cut a web of canals and channels across the whole landscape, steering the seasonal monsoon, storing it, and releasing it across endless rice fields. That water was the engine, rice fed the population, and the more precisely you could control the water, the more rice you could grow, and the more people you could feed. In a monsoon climate, water arrives all at once for a few months, and then vanishes for the rest of the year. Angkor's answer was to capture the flood when it came, bank it in the great reservoirs, and dole it out through the dry season, turning a landscape of feast and famine into one that could grow rice almost year-round. Angkor's canals let a single landscape support an extraordinary number of human beings, and the scale of the engineering is hard to overstate. The LiDAR revealed that the entire terrain had been reshaped by human hands. Thousands of ponds, embankments, and channels, laid out in a grid so regular it can only have been planned from the top down. This was not a city that grew by accident, it was a machine for turning rain into people, and that is where the comparison with Paris comes in. because when you add up everything the lasers revealed, the temple core, the surrounding sprawl, the field systems tied into the water network, you are no longer looking at a town, you are looking at one of the biggest cities on Earth. Here is the claim, and here is why archaeologists are willing to make it. At its height in the 12th and 13th centuries, Greater Angkor spread across something like 1,000 square kilometers of connected settlement and engineered landscape. By area, that makes it one of the most extensive pre-industrial cities ever mapped anywhere in the world. Population estimates are harder. You cannot count wooden houses that rotted away centuries ago, but researchers put Greater Angkor somewhere in the range of 700,000 to nearly 1 million people. Now compare that to Europe at the same moment. In the year 1200, Paris, one of the great cities of medieval Europe, held perhaps 150,000 to 200,000 people. London held maybe 20,000 or 30,000. Angkor dwarfed them. While Europe's largest cities were counted in the tens of thousands, this city in the Cambodian jungle was counted in the hundreds of thousands. For a long time, the story of the world's largest cities was told through the Mediterranean and the Near East. Rome, Constantinople, Baghdad. Angkor rarely made the list, because most of it was invisible, hidden under trees, unmapped and uncounted. Historians could stand inside the temple walls and have no idea that the city stretched for kilometers in every direction beyond them. The lasers changed that. They didn't just find a lost suburb, they rewrote the ranking of the medieval world. But a city this large, this ingenious, this dependent on water, had a hidden weakness. And that weakness is written into the LiDAR Max 2. The same water network that made Angkor possible also made it fragile. A city that runs on a giant hand-dug plumbing system is only as stable as that system. And the LiDAR revealed the scars of what happened when it began to fail. In the maps, researchers can see canals that were hastily patched, embankments that failed, channels recut in a hurry. It's the archaeological signature of a system under strain, engineers fighting to keep the water moving as something went wrong. And in the 14th and 15th centuries, something did go wrong. Climate records locked in tree rings show that mainland Southeast Asia was hit by wild swings, decades of severe drought broken by years of intense, destructive monsoon flooding. For a city whose entire existence depended on precisely managed water, that was close to a worst case. Drought starved the reservoirs. Then floods tore through the weakened canals faster than they could be repaired. The infrastructure that had taken centuries to build could not keep up. It was not a single dramatic fall. No army burned Angkor to the ground overnight. It was slower, and in a way stranger. The city's own life support system unraveled. Over generations, the center of Khmer power drifted south, toward the coast and toward trade. The great temples were never fully forgotten. Angkor Wat remained a place of worship, its corridors walked by monks and pilgrims for centuries afterward. But the sprawling city around it emptied. The wooden houses fell, the fields went back to forest, and the trees closed over the streets, until the only Angkor left to see was the stone. Here is the part that should keep you up at night. Angkor was found because someone thought to fly lasers over a forest that everyone assumed had already given up its secrets. It hadn't. And Angkor is not alone. The same technology is now stripping the canopy off jungles across the globe. In the forests of Guatemala and Mexico, LiDAR has revealed tens of thousands of previously unknown Maya structures. Causeways, pyramids, and field systems, hidden for over 1,000 years. In the Amazon, it has exposed entire lost urban networks that textbooks said could never have existed there. Every one of these discoveries carries the same quiet, unsettling message. The maps we trusted were incomplete. For as long as humans have looked at jungles, we have assumed that green emptiness meant empty land. It never did. We just couldn't see through the leaves. Angkor was hiding in plain sight, a city larger than any in medieval Europe, sitting under trees that millions of visitors walked past without a second glance. The lasers finally answered a question no one had thought to ask. What if the jungle wasn't the end of the story, but the cover of the book? Angkor spent 500 years growing into the largest city on Earth, and another 500 hiding beneath the trees. It took one plane, one laser, and one afternoon to bring it back. If this changed how you picture the ancient world, subscribe. We reconstruct a lost civilization every week.